Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode of The Extra Point here on KLAA. I'm your host, Roland Rainey, and joined with me today is Jeremy Coleman from Indiana. Our fellow compadre, Justice Gordon from New York, has the day off. Well, we're going to go ahead and jump right into the Week 11 Quick Snap recap because there is a lot to talk about. And once again, we're going into the third week in a row where there's just been a lot of significant upsets. So let's go ahead and hit it. Colts versus the Bills. The Colts take that one 41-15. Jeremy, look, there's a lot to say about the Bills, and we're going to talk about them in a whole nother episode. But the Colts are looking like they're running on all cylinders.
Yeah, there's a phrasing up here that I can't really say on the radio, but it's run the ball more. And that's the light way of putting it. They want to run the ball with Jonathan Taylor, and boy, did he have a massive day. A franchise record, 5 touchdowns in a single game. He was their offense, and that is a team that is playing great football right now. Obviously, they're running the ball great well, but the defense is also playing exceptional football. They were able to shut down, a vaunted Bills offense where they just couldn't get anything done. Bills only put up 15 points. Very mediocre numbers for Josh Allen and company. Watch out for the Colts. They play a brand of football that is conducive for the playoffs. Teams that can run the ball well and play good defense in the cold months of November and December often find their way to the playoffs.
Well, and that's exactly what they did against the Bills. And you talk about Taylor. I mean, he definitely was the little engine that could against the Bills, and they just could not stop him. Once again, Colts take that one 41-15. Browns versus the Lions. Browns squeaked that one out 13-10 against the Lions. Once again, we've discussed this in the past. I don't think the Browns are really on par right now on what they should be when you are up against the Lions, a team that literally has not won any games. They tied a game, and all you can do is squeak out 13-10. That definitely lets you know that you got some work to do.
Yeah, for sure. Baker was giving his own fans grief. They still got the win, but the fans were giving him crap or whatever. His girlfriend even retweeted something that has since been deleted, about how the team needs to play tougher like Baker. So it'll be interesting to see how that team responds, even though, they got a tough win over Detroit. It'll kind of be interesting to see how that locker room comes together. They've got a tough game, I believe, against Baltimore coming up this week. That's a tough matchup for them. We'll see how they respond, in a tough environment.
Well, that's the thing about the Browns that we all have to kind of accept is, look, they're always going to have close games, but if they want to be a playoff contender, they got to be consistent when they are in the trenches, and right now they're really struggling. Then we have the Vikings versus the Packers. The Vikings, once again, squeak out a close one, 34-31. Look, this Vikings team, and we're going to talk about them later in the episode. I don't want to take anything away right now, but this team is better than their record.
Absolutely. Kirk Cousins is playing well. Dalvin Cook is playing well. Justin Jefferson had 160 yards this past week. Just an insane game from him. Adam Thielen's consistent. Their offense is getting it done. Their defense is doing just enough to keep them competitive right now. Like you said, we'll talk more about them later in the episode here.
Then we have the Eagles versus the Saints. Eagles trounced the Saints 40-29. Look here. A lot of people question whether or not Jalen Hurts was the guy. But I tell you what, he has put up some awesome wins against some pretty sound defenses. What do you have to say about this Eagles team?
Well, I agree. And while Jalen Hurts, every quarterback has his flaws, but the one thing he does is he's extremely mature for a young quarterback. He doesn't typically make a ton of mistakes, and his mobility is a big-time game changer. I mean, he had 3 rushing touchdowns. That's a franchise record for a Philadelphia quarterback, ironically enough. And there's a guy named Michael Vick that played there a few years. So that's a pretty impressive record. But the true mark of that defense, or the true mark of that team, is their defense. They're still playing good defense. They're a very good complement to their offense. and they're also running the ball well. They're controlling the clock. They're playing great defense. That's another team, that's always a tough out at this time of the year.
Yeah, I don't want to go above and beyond, and the audience out there, you might actually kill me for making this comparison here. But when you actually go back and watch film on Hurts, I want you to also go back and watch film on Kyler Murray when he first got into the league. This guy's playing similar style football here, making some of the deep throws outside of the pocket on the run, but his speed on the outside killed. And that's the way he's playing ball right now. So, look, great win by the Eagles over the Saints, 40-29. Then we have the mega upset, in my opinion, of Week 11, and that is the Houston Texans beating the Titans. What in the world? Look, we talk about trap games all the time. We talk about games where, hey, teams are just off kilter. They're playing down to the competition of their opponent. But the Texans take that one, 22-13. Look, there's a lot to be said about losing King Henry. However, you played exceptionally well last week. Why couldn't they take it to the Texans? Why was the Texans able to squeak this one out?
Well, I mean, the Titans just, they have lost all their star power. Like you said, Derrick Henry is out. Julio Jones has been out here. He's been on short-term IR. A.J. Brown had to leave the game at one point. So, I mean, at that point, you're down to Marcus Johnson, Nick Westbrook-Akina, and a bunch of backups trying to play wide receiver, stretch the field, make plays for Ryan Tannehill. And Ryan Tannehill put some balls in some terrible positions. He was forcing the ball all day long. Meanwhile, Houston was they were running the ball. Tyrod Taylor was very efficient, made a difference with his running ability as well. Another quarterback who we're talking about who can make a difference with his feet. They didn't turn the ball over. They just played sound football, and lo and behold, they get their second win of the season. So just like you said,
was a factor also. I mean, weather was horrible. It definitely played a factor, but once again, I think the Titans are definitely teetering a slippery slope right now. Just because you lose your star power, you get it. But guess what the saying is? Next man up. So right now, they got to figure out who's the next man up to come in and take an opportunity here. Because right now, you got two opportunities. One in the backfield, one as a wide out. Step up, make a name for yourself, and hopefully continue the path that you've been on with the Titans. Cowboys versus Chiefs. Chiefs take that one 19-9, and I have a whole lot to say about this game here. But I will say the one thing the Chiefs went into this game with was a gritty mentality. It even showed in the feistiness of how the players went after each other on the football field. Every other play looked like there was some sort of jaw-jacking or pushing and shoving on the field. I think the Chiefs took on the mentality that they wanted to be the bully in this game, and they went in with that mentality. They played Dallas with that mentality, and it took them. They took it to the Cowboys. What do you think, son? What are your thoughts on that one?
You make a very good point. While the Chiefs were struggling, we said there were a few things wrong with this team, that they had lost their swagger. Their offense had no rhythm. That is everything they've accomplished in the last 2 weeks, and they brought it all into this game. I mean, they had their swagger back. They were, like you said, they were smack talking. They were getting after the Cowboys. The big thing was the Kansas City defense has really started to play well itself. Moving Chris Jones back to the interior of that defensive line really made the Cowboys struggle with just Chris Jones' ability to rush the passer up the middle. When you take away the ability to step up from you as a quarterback, that makes a lot of difficult throws. You throw a lot of balls off your back foot, which lose kind of the velocity on your throw. That was a big-time game changer. Melvin Ingram, who came over as a free agent from, was traded from the Steelers to the Chiefs. He's made a big difference in their run defense. He's offered something in the pass rush. This team is finding its stride at the right time of the year to carry themselves into a playoff run. this is the first week that they've been leading the AFC West. Ironically, it took them 11 weeks to lead the AFC West. I don't see them relinquishing hold of it at this point. They're playing their best football right now. I expect them to continue to keep playing their best football. And Mahomes is being patient on offense and just taking what the defense is giving him. He's not forcing the ball downfield when it's not there. That's the biggest change. The offense is efficient and then striking you when they have the opportunity.
Yeah, I tell you what, they played a hard-fought game there. Definitely brought a different swagger to this game. There's definitely still some things I would like to see them clean up with Kelsey. Kelsey continues to, have the dropsies. He's been dropping a few balls. And even with Tyreek Hill, the way he used to slice and dice, especially on the skinny post, even on the comebacks, he just kind of seemed to be a little off. However, I do think that this is the type of game that can help give that swagger back, that mentality back. To your point, Mahomes getting those short, quick throws, only taking the deep throws when necessary. This could be a great game for them to really start their run towards the playoffs. Ladies and gentlemen, that's been the quick snap recap here on the Extra Point. Now, as we get ready to go into our next segment, I want to go back to the Cowboys-Chiefs game because I've seen this over and over and over again. And that is the fact that the Cowboys, despite having a great record right now, despite being on top of the division, one of their issues, and it was there last year, and even with the wins, it's there this year. Their inability to be adequate when making adjustments. Even when the Chiefs was taking it to them right out of the gate, coaches did not adjust well, not even on the defensive side of the ball. And I know they brought in Dan, and Dan has been exceptional up to this point. But I noticed when they played the Broncos, they ran into the same thing. When they get punched in the mouth, they are lackadaisical and they're very inadequate with coaching adjustments. Even when they went into the halftime and came out, you would have thought they would have came out with a little bit more fire and vigor to get after this game. And they came out the same typical Cowboys that they were in the first half. I know a lot of folks want to put this on the players, and I hear a lot of hoopla about, Amari Cooper wasn't there, and that made a huge difference. Well, I challenge everyone to go back and look at the last Cowboy game. Amari Cooper was basically absent in that game. There wasn't a whole lot there. With that being said, and also you look at targets, CeeDee Lamb gets more targets. So I won't put it all on Amari Cooper not being there. Even with Amari Cooper not being there, Wilson had a lot of drops. The fact that Amari Cooper was absent doesn't mean that Wilson gets to drop balls. Once again, next man up. You got to make those catches. Also, in halftime, what adjustments were made by the coaches? This seems to be the theme with the head coach and offensive coordinator. They do not know how to effectively make adjustments when they are behind. When they're out front, easy sailing. When they're playing from behind, I notice and they get punched in the mouth, they have a tough time actually making adjustments. So I'll actually bring this back to Ryan Clark. Ryan Clark earlier made a comment that his assessment was the Chiefs showed up, the Cowboys didn't. That's basically the essence of this game. I totally disagree with Ryan Clark on that perspective. I think they showed up, the Chiefs did, to punch the Cowboys in the mouth. But how you respond if you want to be that Super Bowl contender is what they lack. They lack in responding and making adjustments. And they just didn't do that. And that is a trend with the Cowboys. Could this come back to haunt them in the future, Jeremy?
Well, yeah, anytime, that you kind of have a disappointing loss on the road, they were in Kansas City. One thing that really struck out to me, is there were a lot of missed opportunities, like you said. Wilson dropped several balls. Prescott, I think, threw 2 interceptions, one on a deep throw to end the half on a drive where they were going down to score the game. And Chartavius Ward made a great interception, but you got to capitalize on that. And like you said, the offense relies on a lot of one-on-one matchups and a guy making a play on that matchup. When you lose a guy like an Amari, CeeDee Lamb went out of this game. This is Michael Gallup's first game back. You could tell there was a lot of rust there. There wasn't a lot of practice time there. It's concern going forward. It sounds like CeeDee Lamb is going to be fine, but it is something to monitor. This team needs to develop more of that backbone. When they're playing well, it seems like they've got this confidence and swagger. Just like I said about the Chiefs kind of rounding into form, there are times where you see that from the Cowboys, and then there's a game like this past one where it's like, where did that go this game? That's what they need to get back to. They need to be more confident when they go out there. I think at times when they get down, they tend to stay down. They've got to find a way to rise up and make plays, next man up mentality.
Yeah, I'm with you on that one. And I think something else that they really need to pay attention to is they depend a lot on CeeDee Lamb and Cooper. What they need to do is invest. Those guys are stellar players, and they are going to make plays. So instead of continuously working on that strength, go to people like Wilson, go to people like the tight end Schultz, and work with them to make them much better. Because I'm going to be honest with you. If you go back and look at some of the catches that Schultz had, his aggressiveness, his ability to go downfield and block, very lackluster at best. Those are the things they got to fix. Wilson, just simple slant routes, not even the dig routes. These are 101 type catches for the NFL wide receivers, and he's dropping them. There was one particular cut across the middle. Look, they were playing a high safety, but they had adjusted on the off guy, and when he went through the middle, he was wide open. But he saw the adjustment, and he knew he was getting ready to get clocked, and he turned his head, and he literally just dropped the ball. My friend, you're in the NFL. That hit is coming regardless. Make the catch, hold it on tight, bring it down, go down to the ground, or take the hit. But those are the type of things that they're going to work on because injuries are a part of this game like we already know, and this is going to happen the further we go down the season. You're going to have folks like Amari Cooper who, gets put on the COVID list, or you might have a rolled up ankle or maybe a concussion protocol, someone who goes in a concussion protocol. These are the things the Cowboys got to prep for. But once again, I don't put that on the players. I put that directly on the coaching staff. The coaching staff has to put these players in positions to be successful. Once again, this is an extremely talented team. When they're on, they are on. But when they're off, they lack the ability to make adjustments. So the next one, and I found this next topic very intriguing because no one is talking about it. And no one is talking about it. And I find it intriguing because I'm going to throw out a couple of stats here that might make people look at this team a little bit differently. And I'm not talking about the Pats, but I'm going to compare this team to the Pats. Right now, New England is at the top of their division. Mac Jones, as a rookie, is playing solid football. This team is doing exceptionally well. But there's another team in the NFC North that's doing exceptionally well. And right now, they're second, and that's the Minnesota Vikings. Right now, that team could be, they're 5-5 right now. They're at 500. But they could easily be 7-3. They had 3 overtime games. They lost those games. They lost 2 of the 3 in overtime. The first one they lost to the Bengals, 27-24, and I think we all remember that one. That was the game of field goals. And once again, they lost this game, but it was a very close one. It could have easily been theirs. Then they lost another overtime game to the Ravens. Same thing, 34-31. When I look at these 2 losses and how they were lost, it wasn't like they got beat up on the field. Game-winning field goals in overtime to mention. But let's look at Kirk Cousins. Ladies and gentlemen, here on the extra point, let me throw out some stats that no one is talking about right now. Kirk Cousins, the quarterback who's always felt underrated, had the wacky contractual dispute out of Washington, ended up with a a massive trade there with the Vikings, up and down season. But here's what he has right now: 21 touchdowns, only 2 interceptions on the season right now. Let me repeat that: 21 touchdowns and only 2 interceptions. He has a quarterback rating of 106 right now, a total of 2,700 plus yards. He is playing lights out along with Dalvin Cook, playing lights out football. I believe this team, if they continue to play the way they are, could be dangerous for anyone to go up against on the road to the playoffs. What do you think about this team, Jeremy?
Yeah, their offense has been incredibly efficient. They focus on moving the chains, and they're doing a fantastic job of that. Obviously, Dalvin Cook's a big part of their offense. They want to run the ball, and he's so electric with his ability to start, stop, and then go 100%. But then, like you said, Kirk Cousins has been playing exceptionally well football. He distributes the ball so well. Adam Thielen gets his touches. Justin Jefferson gets his touches. Shoot, they lose Irv Smith for a good portion of this year. In steps Tyler Conklin, kind of an afterthought on this offense. And he has been a nice red zone weapon for them. He's caught multiple touchdowns here, in the past month. So they've got a well-rounded attack. They've got a good backup running back in Alexander Madison. They've got pieces on offense, and they are playing good football right now. Like you said, they just lost some close games. Everyone loses close games. Sometimes the ball just doesn't bounce your way or through an upright. But this is a team that can be dangerous because of how efficient their offense is. And the defense is playing well enough to win ball games. They're not making a ton of big, flashy plays. It's kind of been the downfall of this team. A defense will give up a score, and then the offense has to go get a score. But this is a teams definitely have to watch out for as teams try to make a playoff push. Vikings look like they're going to be a wild card team at this point, or at least could sneak into a wild card game. So,
why do you think Kirk Cousins is so underrated as a quarterback?
This year, it's because I don't think anyone had any expectations for him. He's in a contract year. Years past, everyone gives him crap because he's never won a primetime football game. But he's been around the league for a while. He was good in Washington. He wasn't great, but he's been good in Minnesota. He hasn't been great, but he's done exactly what's been asked of him this year, and that's why he's playing some of his best football of his career.
Yeah, I often wonder about a player like that because when you look at stats like this, even against some of the elite QBs out there that are playing exceptional football right now, this guy's stats, staying on his own 2 feet, I mean, they can't be disputed. But the record doesn't go along with the stats, and because of that, I think he's not getting the kind of accolades that other quarterbacks out there are getting. Once again, I'll go back to the Eagles, Jalen Hurts. When you put a 40-29 stomp on the Saints and you win a couple of games, you tend, especially as a rookie, you tend to get, a lot more media attention, a lot more fanfare because of how you're playing. But this guy is playing consistent football. The record, I think it's the record that's really not giving them the true attention that I think they probably should have right now.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. When you look at a team that's 5-5, you're thinking, they're struggling to, barely win half their football games. But when you take out the tape and look at this team, they're playing good football. They've just missed some opportunities. Greg Joseph has missed 2 opportunities at the beginning of the year, like you said, against the Bengals, and then the following week as well. This team could be contending for like a number 2 seed in the NFC right now because no one in the NFL is putting together their best football right now. All the top teams are losing. We've discussed it for the last 3 weeks. All the top teams are losing games that we don't think they should lose. It's going to be a close battle as we go to the playoffs here. This could be one of the most interesting years in the NFL with so many teams vying for playoff spots. It'll be really interesting to see how tiebreakers figure into the playoff race this year.
Now, that's a great point. And to your last comment, before we wrap up today's session, I definitely want to hammer that point home about 3 weeks in a row now. Top tier teams are, not just getting beat, but they're getting trounced by teams that they should not be losing to. So the question becomes, what's going on here? What is happening to the fact that someone like the Titans could lose to the Texans, or the fact that someone like the Bills can lose to the Jags 9-6? Like, how does that even happen?
I think the biggest thing right now is, we're in a longer NFL season than we ever have been. There's an extra week this year. Every team plays 17 games. Where is everyone mentally at this point? That's the biggest thing I seem to notice. It seems like there are some teams that come prepared to play every week, and there's others that don't. And it's up and down every single week. One team looks like they're ready to play. As soon as the Colts took the field this past week, they looked like the team that was going to win that game. Kind of the same way with, all the upsets we've seen over the last 3 weeks. There's one team that looks really sharp and one that looks really sloppy. So teams have got to find a way to be more consistent. That's why you keep seeing all these big upsets. Consistency is the name of the game in the NFL. If you're inconsistent, you're going to drop some ball games.
Well, that's exactly what's going on. So let's see what Week 12s bring. I'm quite sure Week 12 is going to have some type of surprise in there for us, but that's the way it's been. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us here on The Extra Point. And on behalf of my fellow colleague, Jeremy Coleman from Indiana, I'm your host, Roland Rainey, and we'll see you here again next week on The Extra Point.